Hi, I'm Elena, and this is the moment I stop shrinking for people too small to see my worth. This is my story. They say your life can change in a single moment, and mine did, with a single lie. It was 7:43 p.m. on a rainy Thursday night. I still remember the soft patter of rain against the windows and the smell of dinner on the stove. My husband Daniel texted me 5 words that shattered the illusion I had clung to for years. In a meeting. Back late. That message wouldn't have raised any red flags if it hadn't been for the fact that I'd just spoken to his assistant 10 minutes earlier, asking if she could remind him to pick up milk on his way home. Her words still echo in my mind. Meeting? No, he left the office an hour ago, said he had personal plans tonight. That was when the air shifted. Something inside me froze, my fingers clenched around my phone, and I stared at the screen like it had just betrayed me. Because it had. Or rather, he had. Daniel, my husband of 9 years. My partner. The man who once swore he'd never lie to me. The man who kissed my forehead every morning like it was sacred. The man who told me I was the only woman he could ever love. That man was out there, with her. I didn't know who she was, not yet. But I knew there was someone else. You can feel it in your gut, can't you? When someone checks out. When the warm touches become cool. When the I love yous become routine, or worse, forgotten altogether. For months, I'd ignored the signs, the late nights, the secretive smiles, the sudden password changes, the cologne that wasn't mine on his shirt. I chalked it up to work stress, midlife crisis, anything but the truth. I didn't want to admit that I was losing him, that I'd already lost him. But that night, everything crystallized. My intuition, sharpened by months of unease, screamed at me, he's lying, he's with her. I paced the kitchen, fists clenched, rage and heartbreak fighting for dominance inside me. My mind raced with images, his hands on her skin, his lips on hers, all the tenderness he once gave me now wasted on someone else. I felt humiliated, replaced, disposable. But most of all, I felt something new, something dangerous. Determination. I wasn't going to confront him that night. Not yet. No tears, no begging, no screaming into the void of a cold, indifferent man. No, I was going to play this differently. I was going to be smart. Because if he thought he could gaslight me into silence, cheat on me in plain sight, and then come home and kiss me like nothing happened, he had no idea who he was messing with. You don't get to break someone's heart and walk away without consequence. You don't get to dismantle years of trust and expect silence. You don't get to burn down the house and expect applause. He chose this path, and soon he'd see where it led. To the truth, to exposure, to karma. And I was going to be the one holding the match. In the days that followed, I played the role of the dutiful wife so well, I could have won an Oscar. I smiled when he came home. I laughed at his half-hearted jokes. I listened as he complained about long meetings and tight deadlines, all while biting back the bile that rose in my throat every time he said her name without saying it. Because I knew. Deep down, I knew. There was a shift in everything. He no longer looked me in the eye. He touched me less. He answered questions vaguely. He guarded his phone like it contained nuclear codes. We used to share everything, passwords, playlists, dreams. Now, he kept his phone face down, locked tighter than Fort Knox. He took calls on the balcony, whispered texts into the screen, claimed every vibration was a client emergency. Lies, all of it. And yet, what hurt more than his deception was how casually he did it. As if I was too stupid to notice. As if the woman who had shared his bed, carried his burdens, and loved him through every failure wouldn't sense another presence between us. I stopped sleeping. My appetite vanished. I'd lie awake at night, listening to the shower running. At odd hours, wondering if he was scrubbing her off his skin before crawling into bed beside me. The emotional toll was heavier than I'd imagined. Betrayal is a slow, cruel poison. It doesn't kill you instantly. It seeps into your veins and numbs everything. Your confidence, your worth, your sanity. I began second-guessing myself. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Maybe he was just tired, stressed, distant, not unfaithful. But then I found the receipt. It was tucked under the passenger seat of his car, a small, crumpled piece of paper from a boutique hotel across town, a hotel he never mentioned, a hotel that charged by the hour. Room 214, 2 guests, paid. In cash. Date, 2 nights ago. The night he claimed he'd been working late on a proposal. I sat there in the driver's seat, the receipt trembling in my hands. The rage hit me like a tidal wave. There it was, the proof. He wasn't just cheating. He was meticulous about it. He was covering his tracks, paying in cash, using an alias, taking advantage of the trust I had poured into him for nearly a decade. I looked at that receipt like, it was a death certificate, and in many ways it was. The death of our marriage, the death of my illusions. But it was also something else. A spark. That little piece of paper lit something inside me. A fire I hadn't felt in years. A clarity I hadn't known I needed. Because this wasn't just infidelity, it was a betrayal of the life we'd built, the years I'd given, the sacrifices I made, the career I put on hold to support his. The nights I stayed up with our sick child while he traveled for work. I had given everything. And now he was giving himself to someone else, without remorse, without respect, without even the decency of an honest goodbye. He thought I'd never find out. He thought I'd never leave. He thought I was too weak, too dependent, too naive. But he was wrong. I wasn't going to crumble. I was going to rise. I started documenting everything. Every lie. Every excuse. Every moment he slipped out and left me behind. Because knowledge is power. And soon I was going to use that power to destroy the carefully crafted fantasy he'd built. He thought he could outsmart me. He had no idea who he was dealing with. The thing about betrayal is, it's never just about the act itself. It's about the consequences. It's about what you lose that you can't get back. Daniel's affair wasn't just a blow to our marriage. It was a ticking bomb under the foundation of my entire life. And I was standing right above it, watching everything I built start to crack. We had a daughter, Emily. 6 years old, with her father's eyes and my stubbornness, she adored him, thought he hung the moon. Every night she waited by the window, just to wave at his car as he pulled into the driveway. He didn't see what his betrayal would do to her. To us. He thought it was just about him and her, his midlife fantasy, his ego, his desires, but it was so much more. It was about our home, our family, our future. And here's the part that made my blood run cold. He had started siphoning money out of our joint accounts. At first I thought I was imagining it. A few missing dollars here, some strange transfers there. But when I finally sat down and started combing through the bank statements, really digging, I saw the pattern. Weekly cash withdrawals, payments to a consulting firm that didn't exist. And then the big one, a down payment for a luxury condo across town, in a building known for its discretion. It was all in his name. No mention of me, no mention of Emily, just a brand new life waiting for him. And her. That was the moment my grief turned to fury. He wasn't just cheating. He was replacing us. Planning a future without us, quietly, moving pieces behind the scenes like I was just some footnote in his story. Like our family was a chapter he was ready to skip past. Like I wouldn't notice, or worse, like I wouldn't matter enough to fight back. He underestimated me. He thought I'd be too heartbroken to think clearly, that I'd cry into my pillow while he slipped away with everything. Our savings, our stability, our daughter's future. He didn't realize that the woman he thought he could discard was watching everything. I hired a lawyer, quietly, privately. I didn't even tell my closest friends yet. I wanted every step to be calculated, controlled. I wasn't going to scream in his face or make a scene at dinner. No, that wasn't the kind of revenge I wanted. I wanted consequences. I wanted justice. I wanted him to feel what I felt. Helpless, cornered, undone. Because this wasn't just about cheating. This was financial deception, emotional abandonment, and something close to criminal fraud. He had forged my name on one of the bank forms. I had proof. My lawyer confirmed it. That alone could ruin his career if it went public. His career in finance, with a spotless record and an image built on trust. It wasn't just personal now. It was professional, legal, tangible. Every late night he spent at a meeting, he was chiseling away at our life. Every lie he told chipped away at the security Emily and I deserved. And that was why this couldn't be ignored. I wouldn't let him walk away clean. I wouldn't let him start over without paying for what he destroyed. He thought he could erase me from the picture. But what he didn't realize was, I was holding the original, the real story, the truth, the receipts, literally and figuratively. This mattered because I mattered. My daughter mattered. Our lives weren't just collateral damage in his selfish affair. He was about to find out exactly how much that mattered. They say the best revenge is living well. I say the best revenge is living smart and leaving no trace of what's coming until it hits like a freight train. Once I had the bank statements, the hotel receipts, and enough behavioral evidence to satisfy a courtroom, I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking strategically. If Daniel wanted a game, I'd play it, but by my rules. I made 3 decisions that night, sitting on our living room couch with a cup of cold tea and a burning need for justice. 1. I wasn't going to confront him, not until I had everything in place. 2. I was going to gather evidence so airtight that no lawyer, judge, or whispering colleague could deny what he'd done. 3. I wasn't going to let him take another cent, another breath of peace, without knowing the price of betrayal. I began with digital forensics. It's amazing what you can find when someone thinks they've covered their tracks. Daniel's email was easy to access. He used the same password for everything. A rookie mistake from a man who thought he was smarter than everyone else. And there it was. Buried in his trash folder, a flight confirmation to Miami, 2 seats, booked under his name and Monica Evans. Her. I finally had a name. A face too, once I dug into her socials. She was exactly what you'd expect, mid-30s, polished, heavily filtered, and constantly captioning photos with lines like, "He makes me feel seen." I felt nothing but ice in my veins as I stared at their beach selfies. There he was, my husband, pretending to be a free man, smiling like he hadn't just emptied half our savings to fund a second life. But that was fine. I didn't need him to feel guilty. I just needed him to feel cornered. I sent everything to my lawyer. Every hotel invoice, every email, screenshots of text messages I managed to retrieve from our shared phone bill records, financial transfers to her Venmo, and even security camera footage from our neighbor's Ring doorbell showing Daniel sneaking out with an overnight bag. I then opened a separate bank account in my name only and diverted all household funds into it. Legally, I had the right. Joint assets, joint liabilities. I also froze the credit cards under our shared name. He would find out soon enough when he tried to swipe for one of his fancy dinners and got denied. Next, I met with a forensic accountant. Quietly behind his back, I handed her everything I had. Within days, she confirmed it. He'd moved over $60,000 into a separate business account I never knew existed, an account registered under a shell company, one that Monica Evans had co-signed. He was building a future with her, financed by our money. And now, I had legal proof. That was my leverage. I started crafting the final piece of the plan. A presentation, literally, slides, files, records, every lie he told in chronological order. I didn't want to just tell him I knew. I wanted to show him. I wanted to watch his face as the facade crumbled. But before that, I needed to secure our future. I updated my will. Had custody documents drafted in advance. Changed Emily's school emergency contacts. Scheduled a private therapy session for her with someone trained in handling parental separation. Because unlike Daniel, I was thinking of everyone's future, not just my own. And then I waited. He had a business trip planned, 3 days in Chicago. That's what he told me, at least. But I already knew he wasn't going to Chicago. He was going to Miami, with her. And while they toasted cocktails by the beach, I would be executing phase 2, reclaiming everything he tried to steal. And making sure the next time he lied, he'd have no one left to lie to. While Daniel was off in Miami playing the part of a carefree lover, I was at home putting my plan into action, step by meticulous step. No more crying, no more questions, just strategy. Step 1. Legal and financial lockdown. The first thing I did was work with my attorney to file an emergency motion to freeze joint assets. With the forensic accountant's report as evidence, we were able to demonstrate that Daniel was misappropriating marital funds for personal and undisclosed use. That was enough to convince the court to temporarily halt his access. Within 48 hours, the judge approved the motion. That meant Daniel returned from his romantic getaway to find our joint bank accounts inaccessible and all credit cards declined. I could almost hear the click of his entitled world shutting down. But I wasn't done. Step 2. Custody shield. Using the paper trail he left behind, I filed for temporary sole custody of Emily, citing his financial misconduct and emotional abandonment. Again, the courts listened. I wasn't just a scorned wife. I was a mother protecting her daughter from instability. When Daniel tried to pick Emily up for a surprise daddy-daughter day, he was served with a court order. The look on his face, I was told, was one for the history books. Step 3. The truth bomb. Remember that presentation I created? I invited him to lunch, a public place, neutral territory. He showed up late, looking smug, wearing that same stupid cologne I used to love and now couldn't stand. He thought I was going to beg, cry, maybe even ask him to come back. He didn't. No, I'd already been to war behind his back, and won. I slid a black folder across the table. Before you say anything, I want you to look at this. He flipped it open. Slide 1, the boutique hotel receipt. Slide 2, screenshots of his emails and texts to Monica. Slide 3, the airline tickets to Miami. Slide 4, the forged signature on the bank form. Slide 5, the business registration with her name on it. Slide 6, the forensic accountant's report outlining every dollar he funneled into that hidden account. Slide 7, the court documents freezing the assets and granting me temporary sole custody. He went pale by Slide 3. By Slide 6, he looked like he was going to throw up. I leaned in. You thought you were building a new life, Daniel. Turns out you were building a case against yourself. He tried to speak, to fumble out some excuse, but I held up my hand. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to inform. Everything has already been filed. You're free to go start your new life, just not with my money and not with my daughter. Step 4. Professional exposure. I never intended to sabotage his career, but he did that to himself. When my lawyer discovered he'd used company funds through that shell business to cover some of their getaways, she flagged it. Quiet tip to the company's internal compliance office was all it took. They launched a discreet investigation. 2 weeks later, Daniel was put on administrative leave. 3 weeks later, he was asked to resign. That consulting firm he used as a cover? It had never done any real business. Monica was listed as an employee. It was all a farce. And when his firm realized how much he'd misrepresented, they didn't hesitate to cut ties. He didn't just lose his job. He lost everything he'd been building behind my back. Step 5. Rebuilding. On my terms. With Daniel out of the picture, financially and emotionally, I began rebuilding my life. I went back to work part-time doing freelance design, something I'd put on hold for years. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during the marriage. I joined a support group for women recovering from betrayal. Most importantly, I focused on Emily. I made sure she felt secure, loved, and safe, no matter how broken things had once seemed. And slowly, that fire I'd felt, the one sparked by betrayal, turned into something else. Strength. I wasn't just surviving. I was reclaiming. And Daniel? He was exactly where he belonged, on the outside, looking in. Daniel tried to reach out, of course. In the days following our lunch, he sent a flurry of texts, ranging from apologetic to accusatory to downright desperate. You didn't have to ruin me. We can still fix this. You're being dramatic. Think of Emily. But it was too late. He had made his choices. All I had done was hold up the mirror. and now he had to look at what he'd become. The final confrontation didn't happen at a restaurant or during some heated argument in court. No, it happened in silence, in the cold fluorescent hallway outside the mediation room, with our lawyers pacing nearby. He stood there trying to meet my eyes, but he couldn't. He looked like a shadow of the man he once pretended to be. Disheveled. Angry. Small. "I made a mistake," he finally said, voice low. I stared at him for a long moment. No. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is losing your temper. You built a second life behind our backs. You lied, stole, abandoned. Your daughter. That wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate. He tried again. "You didn't have to go this far." "I didn't go far enough," I replied, "but karma will take care of the rest." And with that, I walked into the mediation room and closed the door behind me. Daniel ended up settling because he had no leverage left. The evidence I gathered ensured that he wouldn't dare push for full custody or spousal support. In fact, his lawyer advised him to take the deal or risk facing criminal charges for financial fraud. He gave up the condo, paid back the money he'd siphoned, and relinquished majority custody of Emily. In the eyes of the law, justice was served. But my justice went deeper than court rulings or frozen accounts. My justice was in the peace I felt when I no longer had to second-guess every word from the man who once shared my bed. My justice was in watching Emily sleep soundly, without confusion or fear, in a home filled with honesty instead of lies. My justice was in every small victory, signing my name to a new apartment lease, launching my freelance business, laughing again without guilt. And Daniel? He spiraled. Monica. Left him shortly after his job collapsed. Turns out, the thrill of stolen moments fades fast when reality sets in, especially when the reality includes no income, no reputation, and a court-ordered restitution agreement. He moved back in with his brother. The man who once lectured me about my lack of ambition now worked part-time at a car rental desk. Karma didn't come loudly. It didn't throw a tantrum or smash windows. It came slowly, precisely, just like I did. It came when he realized he couldn't rebuild what he lost, because he burned the blueprints himself. It came when he looked around and saw the empty life he had fought so hard to create. It came when he saw me, thriving. One afternoon, months later, I saw him across the street as I walked Emily to her music lesson. He caught sight of us, me smiling, Emily skipping, and I watched a flicker of something cross his face. Regret, maybe even shame. And I just nodded. No bitterness, no need for more words. I had already said everything that needed saying. This story didn't end with fireworks or revenge served hot. It ended with a woman standing tall, holding her daughter's hand, no longer waiting to be seen or chosen. Because I chose myself, and I made him face what he thought he'd buried. So here's what I'll leave you with. If you ever find yourself betrayed, discarded, replaced, don't just cry over the broken pieces. Study them, collect them, and when the time is right, build something stronger. And remember, you don't need to scream to shatter someone's illusion. You just need to speak the truth and walk away while it echoes behind you.